And welcome back to Gonzo Film Reviews, everybody. This week is very special. We're going to be talking about Lord of the Rings. And I've seen the first 3 episodes so far of the new Amazon billion-dollar series. And boy, is it exciting. I'm a casual Tolkien fan myself. I've read The Hobbit and the 3 Lord of the Rings books. That's about it. I mean, I've read some of his other things. I read his translation of Beowulf, and I read parts of the Silmarillion, but not the whole thing. He had some other smaller stories, like something about a farmer. What was that special Tolkien story about a farmer? Bonus points if you know it before I can Google it here. Tolkien... Farmer Giles of Ham. I love that story. I love it enough to forget the title, but I love it. So, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. My co-host should be here shortly. I don't know what game he's going to be ending up reviewing, but there's probably a bunch on his plate that he's been looking at recently. One of them could be the Guardians of the Galaxy game from last year, so we will see. But to kick off with Lord of the Rings, I'm just going to start with the first episode. I think they did a fantastic job of trying to rope in fans of the film series. They had the same kind of opening with Galadriel, doing a little history lesson narration. And they had some interesting ways of setting up the elves first in this story. They're trying to set up certain races and characters for the season, and they heavily pushed the elves in the beginning, and they introduced us to the dwarves, and they introduced us to the villain and the villain's stories. We got glimpses of the war against Morgoth, which would be a more interesting show, but I think it looked fantastic. The visuals are incredible. They obviously dumped most of the budget into that. It's definitely the biggest strength of this show, is just how much damn money they had to pour into the visuals, because it looks better than most Hollywood movies in terms of cinematography and effects and lighting and stage presence and everything. And I think we have our co-host. Let me see if I can hear him. I can't hear anything right now. Are you there?
Yeah?
There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Alright, cool. I don't know how well my my audio is coming through.
I'm hearing you pretty well.
Okay, cool.
It's definitely workable.
Right,
how am I
no
hearing?
issues on that end. That's good. So as you were saying, the visual quality really is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, it's worthy of its own. Like, I believe the series are basically just movies on Prime in like a series of. They really could be movies on their own. They really could. Each episode, absolutely beautiful, high production value. The camera work for the show is gorgeous so far. All the actors are really good at their parts, in my opinion. I genuinely enjoy this show so far.
You could tell it was made by fans, too. I mean, a lot of criticisms from the purists saying that, you know, certain characters have to look a certain way to be Tolkien characters, but it doesn't seem to be indicated in anything he wrote, per se. They don't have passages they can point to prove that all elves should be white, etc. Or
Right.
that all dwarf women should have beards. they can't really prove it, but I think this was made by fans because I've never seen so much love poured into the effects and the set design of a show before, because usually these shows are lower budgeted. Game of Thrones did not have this kind of budget when they started out.
Well, I mean, also, you have to really, take into account that big studios like this that know that what they're putting out there is already popular, usually they just rely on the name. Like, oh, this is a Lord of the Rings show. Of course people will watch it. We won't really have to do that much for it. But, oh man, am I so happy it's not the case with this. I mean, you can tell just how much, blood, sweat, and tears is being put into every episode, into every scene, even. I mean, the costume design is gorgeous. I can't tell you how jealous I am of, like, some of the weaponry we've seen so far.
Oh
I
yeah, an
myself
elvish
am
blade
a
is just
collector.
unmatchable.
It's so nice. I mean, you gotta wonder if they let the actors take them home as props after the series is over. I know
If
I
not,
would
they're going to
ask.
get stolen.
Right. It's like Ryan Reynolds with the Deadpool costume. I'm taking it home.
Yeah, Ben Affleck nicked a couple of the Batarangs when he played Batman, and I'm sure Pattinson will do the same if he hasn't already.
Right. I don't
There's
blame
just
him, honestly.
too many goodies.
Honestly, I'd do the same thing.
And the settings in this show are amazing too. We've never seen Numenor before. In the movies, it was like completely unmentioned, and it was never at the forefront. But we actually got to go to a completely new continent in this book series, in the show, and like that was very exciting because you finally get to see a beautiful city that's completely different from a lot of the ones in Middle Earth, because the average Middle Earth city, even their greatest ones, are in decline by the time we get to the movies. So seeing them in their full glory in this previous age in the show, and then going to other continents and seeing even better ones, is just so fucking cool for me.
It is awesome. I mean, especially, I just love the simple fact that we're getting a really good look into the history of Lord of the Rings, how things happen. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit taken aback by the actor or portrayal of Celebrimbor. I was genuinely taken back only because I played like the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games, and he. I expected the like long elven hair, like kind of the general elven physique of like the slightly chiseled narrow jaw, the Celebrimbor. He kind of had his image displayed already, but I'm not upset with the actor they portray him with. However, he didn't get much screen time yet. I'm hoping we see more of him. And I actually am in love with the idea that, we might even get to see the tie-in and the construction of the towers that he used to make the rings, which is
He might
so
really come
cool.
into that element and build up to that level of character that we see in the games throughout the course of the series.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my hope, at least, that he evolves into that, which we so loved already.
Absolutely.
From playing those.
And I wonder how long the series is supposed to be. Do we know that yet?
They've allegedly been able to put 5 seasons worth down. They definitely bought one season. They funded that for a couple $100 million. The rights cost $250 million. So at that point, they were already around $450 million on the budget. They greenlit a second season, and I think they're doing that now. And they marketed the hell out of this season. So all in all, they spent somewhere around $750 million before it even touched the screens for the average audience member. And they're well on their way to spending over $1 billion across 2 seasons. of this show, and then they say 5 seasons is what they have planned right now. But knowing what happened with Game of Thrones, and if it's successful and big, they're definitely going to have 8 to 10 seasons and then spin-offs if this does Game of Thrones numbers. And so far it's beating the Game of Thrones spin-off House of the Dragon in ratings, and House of the Dragon got an automatic second season after one episode. So I mean, it's beating the kind of numbers that it needs to be hitting just to make 8 seasons at least. So I'm thinking 5 is what we know now, but I'm easily seeing 8 to 10 plus 2 or 3 spin-offs based on different characters. Maybe they flash forward for somebody like Gollum or Gandalf, or Galadriel gets her own spin-off. One of the rogues that we saw in episode 2 and 3 could get his own. You never know.
You never know. I mean, I can definitely see that the elf that they've been following seems like he's going to be an important character.
Elrond?
Yeah, in one way or another, I feel like he's going to become important. And I feel like the way they're gearing it with him, that he may actually end up being the one to get his own little spin-off.
I wouldn't be too surprised, because Hugo Weaving played him in the movies, and he was a very important aspect in both the movies and the books, where he really led the Fellowship of the Ring on their journey, and he grouped them all together after Gandalf did the original roundup, and he sent them on their way, because he was pretty much the last guard for the elves in Middle-earth as Sauron was taking over, and he was basically sending his people to Valinor. He tried to send his daughter, but she stayed for Aragorn. He tried to send everyone, and he ended up finally convincing Galadriel to go to Valinor during the final siege at Middle-earth, when they basically marched upon Mordor in a suicide mission, hoping that the hobbits would get rid of the ring. So yeah, Elrond is going to turn into a super important character.
Mm-hmm. Well, absolutely. I mean, with that much background, plus, I think it's interesting that he seemed to have already had some kind of history with the Southlands, where he was protecting the Southlands and its people. I wonder if maybe they'll do even a prequel to his start of his story.
That would be very interesting to see, and anything that they could get the rights to as far as goes with Morgoth and those battles, oh my god, would I love to see cool. Those.
Because they kind of skipped right to Morgoth's defeat.
Yeah, those were just earth-shattering, huge 20, 30, 50-year wars between the biggest beasts you could imagine. They showed a tiny slice of it, but there was a dragon that Morgoth had that was so big, it was as big as mountains. I'm gonna look up his name real quick. I loved this thing. I wonder if I'm pronouncing this right. Ancalagon. That seems right. Often titled the Black, was the greatest of all winged dragons. He was bred by Morgoth during the First Age, and was the largest dragon to have ever existed in Middle-earth. His appearance in history was restricted to the War of Wrath.
Wow.
He is a big boy. He's bigger than mountains.
Huh.
I'm going to drop that image in your Discord.
Why do the bad guys always get all the cool stuff?
Holy Lord.
Oh my. Yeah, he was huge.
Yeah, so if they could show anything like that,
absolutely enormous.
I would even pay for Prime to see that.
Oh, I'm paying for it. I like Amazon.
Yeah, I'm on my free trial. Don't give the bastards an inch.
I don't know, man. The watch parties are pretty clutch.
They really are. They're just They're fun. A lot of streaming services, they started doing it in 2020 when like the pandemic was keeping everybody apart, and now it's just super convenient because it syncs your streams, but you don't lose any quality. I still
Mm-hmm.
got the full 4K Dolby Vision audio and everything. It was fine for me. It's a really cool feature.
Absolutely. I mean, it was fun. I mean, we even had one of our other friends join us.
Yeah, I'm glad he's caught up too because now we can all three watch him every Thursday night.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this series has just been it's blowing my expectations away. The only couple things I would ever probably have to say about it that were slightly negative is that I don't really like what they're doing with Elrond and Galadriel's relationship. I mean, she's his grandmother technically, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and he's acting more like she's sort of like his employee in a way. It's kind of weird. But I did see a very funny meme where it's that old lady walking and she's insisting on something, and this girl's just placating her just to get her to go there. And it
Yeah.
was Elrond trying to get Galadriel into Valinor by saying, "Yes, yes, I know the Dark One's still out there. Now come to Valinor, Grandma." That's
Or
kind of their
the
relationship in episode
delusions.
one.
Yeah, it was kind of like a no, come on, the evil's gone. Go on ahead.
And I have to say, I love the introduction of the Harfoots, though. It just
Yeah, it
felt
was awesome.
so natural and a little bit surprising. Like, I genuinely haven't felt anything like that in a long time. Like, I would have to think back to when I was a kid watching movies for the first time, very young, when I had such a wholesome interaction with an introduction to a species, because every set in that introduction was practical, and they were just like pushing apart grass and leaves and things that look like a stump, a hillside, a tree, log, anything. It would just open up and you would see a practical use that they were using to disguise, like a table, a hut, a bed. And it's so cool. It was just really earthy and really cool and fun. And you were just sitting there the whole time thinking, oh, what's going to pop out next? Or who's going to
Right.
pop out next?
And I mean, they're definitely a very interesting race too in the show. I mean, they kind of exist by staying out of the way of everything else and constantly moving around, and they're nomads, which is really cool. But also, we learned in the recent episodes that they honor those who couldn't keep up when they migrated by like remembering them, but they are so strict to their code that they're willing to like leave their own behind.
Yeah, they're a very vagabond version of the hobbits, and they're less trusting and they're less secure and safe. They're
Yeah,
just taking these little wagons of disguised earth and grass around, setting up shop, and just hiding from every other species.
and it seems like they don't really stay in one spot for too long at all.
Yeah, and they have interesting codes as well. They seem pretty free form and free flowing, but
Mhm.
they also have this strange work ethic where they're working hard, whereas the hobbits were more like, work a little bit so that we can relax full time. The Harfoots are more like, we all need to contribute, we all need to work, especially within each family, pull your weight.
Absolutely. And it's definitely interesting with them with their star maps. It
Yeah,
seems
they're
like,
budding astronomers.
yeah, like they're getting like prophecies from star maps.
That's a very good point. I feel like the hobbits are more, a philosophical kind of logical race, where Harfoots are way more, into divination and astronomy and prophecy and just kind of trying to find the meaning in nature to explain everything for them. And that's a pretty cool difference there as well.
Yeah, they also like adorn themselves with like grass and moss and like twigs and leaves. Like it's interesting because whenever they had like that little like festival before they were gonna leave, they each had like a grass headdress or like oh man, what am I like a the elder the Harfoot elder had like dry wheatgrass, like a headdress of that, and it was like huge, almost looked like a kind of like a fluffy mohawk almost. It was interesting.
Yeah, and they have like twig necklaces and everything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a style choice just as much as it is a disguise, and they kind of use it for both.
Mm-hmm.
And the elves, good lord, they just, I mean, the way they portrayed, I think it was Rivendell in the first one.
Yeah,
I might be wrong, but
I think.
oh my gosh, the architecture is amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the scenery in just about every single clip of that show so far is just gorgeous. I mean, even the Southlands where like the orcs are.
Yeah,
where,
it's
like,
much more
those, like
mundane human settlement.
Yeah, it's all like destroyed and like nasty looking. Doesn't look very survivable on the surface, but like it's still really cool. I mean, you look at it and you don't look at it with less respect and adoration as you do with the rest of the show, because there's so much detail in it just the same. Like, yeah, there's a glowing golden city that's thriving, and then there's the villages with poorer people who are essentially farming in the mud. And just seeing both walks of life in such short span of time between them, it's honestly really cool to see how they did both of those things and how they contrast each other. I mean, the poor blame the elves for pretty much everything about where they're at, but
yeah, and it's effortless for them. They balanced everything so well. They didn't just, release all of the elf footage they shot in the first episode. They juxtapose the different lifestyles, and they interpose the different scenes and stack them together like a very well shuffled deck of cards, so that you can have a good variety but still see all this beautiful stuff coming across your face, especially the seaborne stuff. I'm a sucker for ship life and different types of classic ships.
That ocean monster was awesome.
It was. They called it the Worm, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
It was very cool.
Oh man, just everything in that show is just amazing so far.
Yeah, I've loved it. I haven't really understood much of the criticism, but I've also not seen as much criticism as they're claiming there is. There's been a very strange PR push from Amazon to claim that there's a ton of KKK members attacking the show and then defending it, and it's just a very strange thing because I haven't really seen them or heard them at all. I've seen a couple people say a couple dumb things, but I know a couple YouTubers like Nerdrotic that are doing it just to poke at them and just to make an issue out of everything. But I mean, they don't influence a lot of people, so I don't really see what the problem is, and I don't see any reason why they had to shut down all IMDb reviews for 72 hours. That just seems sus. It seems like you're just weeding out anything that's not positive, whether or not it's racist at all. But I didn't get to see the reviews because they shut them down, so I can't say 100% what was in them, but I definitely think it's weird that a company that put out a show is able to buy up all the review sites so that they can control what kind of reviews come in for that show. That's a little too much power in my opinion, but we'll see where it goes.
No, you're definitely right. And honestly, I didn't even bother looking at the reviews because I like to go into things kind of blind.
Exactly, yeah.
I like to form my own opinions before I even look at anyone else's. So, I find that that's the best way that you can find to enjoy something. Granted, I mean, we have people that come in here and listen to us babble on about stuff, and that's honestly, I mean, it's great. We appreciate it, but
we're more like shepherds.
Yeah.
We steer you in the general direction of a good time, and you can either, choose to watch or listen to what we recommend or not.
Or I mean, hey,
but I like what you're saying. I definitely agree. Never ever read a review on something until you've already seen it. Like the only way that I engage with reviews is if they hit me and I can't look, and I was just scrolling and they hit me. So, I hate getting spoiled for anything, especially now that I'm old and surprises surprise me less. I have to go into things 100% blind, otherwise it'll just be totally ruined for me. So, I have to be surprised.
Absolutely. And I mean, the surprise factor of it really amplifies your initial feeling, too. I mean, going into the Lord of the Rings show, I didn't know what I was going to get.
Yeah, and it shatters all of your preconceived notions too. So, you subconsciously automatically are developing something. You're thinking it'll probably be like this, even if you're not consciously doing that. And it's really cool for me to have any preconceived notion get shattered. And that happened a few times this year for different movies. One of them was the Batman in March. That was really fun because they did a lot of things that weren't super typical to a Batman movie, but they still made it better because of those creative choices. So, things like that, it's just exciting because there's a long history of an IP existing, but people still find ways to make it new. It's just the best thing ever.
No, absolutely. I entirely agree.
And how about the dwarves in this one too?
I've always favorite. I have always loved the personality of the dwarves in Lord of the Rings. I don't know. They've always been some of my favorite characters simply because there's just not many other things out there that you can watch where you find the same kind of energy and attitude from the characters that they carry. I mean, sometimes there's such simplicity that they convey through such deeper meaning, but then also there's other times when you want to seek passage to talk to one of them and they just flat out say no and shut the door.
Yep. No.
Yeah. No.
I think they're the most simple, complex folk in the entire canon of Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of simple things about them. They like things to be simple, but things rarely are. So then they find ways to take the complexity of things and beat them into submission, into a manageable submission, I think.
I mean, literally, a competition between dwarves, whoever can break more rocks without getting tired.
And when we say rocks, we're not talking about your mama's garden pebbles. We're talking about giant boulders.
Yeah, like the size of your torso boulders. And whoever can't break their boulder first, loses. End of discussion. Problem solved. And they really simplify it to that degree with most things. And I've always loved the dwarves. They've always had that kind of coat of armor, yes, but also like a code of honor among themselves and those they deem friends, which we don't really see a whole lot with I mean, nowadays there's a lot of shows that kind of mimic the type of setting that Lord of the Rings is in. Dwarves appear in a lot of other things, but I don't know. I just feel like Lord of the Rings conveys their personalities, their culture in a way that makes it special to them.
Yeah, usually dwarves are super simplistic in other mediums. I mean, this is a bad example because it was just a travesty of
The
humanity.
Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah, but the old 2000 D&D movie, like that dwarf wasn't even a dwarf. He was just a slightly short, Irish in face but American in accent dude who just
And
didn't say much the whole time, and then hit
they
a
had
couple
him
things and then growled a couple times and ate and drank and
they
tried
treated
to sleep
him
with things.
more of
It was
like an
just sad.
animal, like an instinctual like animal person more than anything. He was always covered in grime, and he was always like he was literally introduced crawling out of like a pile of trash, and he was pretty much always stuffing his face with food and saying saying obscenities.
And talk about a party having no reason to be together. Like, he just randomly
And just decided to
crawled
be there.
after them.
Yeah,
He
I
literally
mean,
could have just stayed in his trash heap, and he would have been completely left alone by everyone, including the guards that were chasing them. So
yeah.
he
Because
really
what
had no
happened?
reason to screw himself by following them, people he didn't even seem to like.
Right. I think they like shot an arrow at the other two, and it like knocked the dwarf's helmet off, and that's why he got involved. But like, he had no reason to follow them. Like, why did he join the group? I don't know.
Yeah, he took a couple shots at the guard leader. It looked like he was gonna go like down for the count, and then he slipped away with a pretty impressive barrel roll, and then he just started following them. And I'm like, why? What was your motivation there, buddy? You didn't even tag the guy.
Part of me feels like that the movie might have been made entirely based off of like a first-time DM's attempt at running a game for a brand new group of players, but that DM nor the players put forth that much effort.
And none of them have any idea how the rules of the game work either.
Right. The DM didn't do it with the DM's guide involved at all.
And
Nor did they have
they
a
all
player's
must have been
handbook.
drunk too, because they forget what happened in the prior scene or session. And so they don't logically connect even as a freaking story. But yeah, we will give a full review of
it was pretty
the 2000 D&D movie in March when we review the new one, which looks way better.
There will be a comparison for sure.
The new one looks like it was made by some fans though, like real fans. We have actual dungeons in this one, maps with 5x5 grids.
Yeah.
We have all sorts of actual creatures from the game, characters that actually have a race and a class, so should be cool.
It'll be very nice. I mean, I'm very excited. I want to keep my hopes up, but I'm not gonna get it too high, because after watching the original one, I can see just how bad it can go. Granted, I mean, I highly doubt it could ever get worse than that, but
Yeah.
I'm worried that it won't be better, if that makes sense. I'm gonna keep my hopes up though.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably gonna resemble I'm gonna say it's probably gonna resemble a feature-length episode of Vox Machina, probably just more PG-13, because it looks like they're trying to take something that would have been played in 5e and then, cutting away the parts that are obviously, game mechanics like narration from the DM and dice rolls and all that.
Narrated by Matthew Mercer.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're probably just, I think that's what they're going for. They're probably going for, like, either a one off or they're condensing a campaign and they're just kind of trying to strip away anything that made it super obvious that it was a game. Because allegedly, from what the actor said, on the set and before they started shooting, they actually played the game a lot. And their favorite dungeon master was Hugh Grant, who plays one of the characters in the movie.
Huh. Well, I mean, honestly, there's no one better to do a movie like Dungeons and Dragons than actual players of, and especially a DM. So, I mean, I have high hopes for it. They have some pretty good actors. Decent roster, it looks like, so I'm excited. So I do have like a fairly quick review that I could do for a game for our little segment. And my thoughts are that I would actually like to review the Guardians of the Galaxy video game.
Oh, good. It's good you chose that because it was the game I threw out earlier when I was running through a quick intro.
Good.
It was the only one that popped to mind, so I was like, you guys might hear about that. So hey, you guys will hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually just finished it like this week. So
awesome. Well, once you're finished with that, I will run them through a quick ad break, and then I will throw in a little bit of news because there's some D23 new. Well, D23. I think it's D23 news from the Disney Expo that came out this week. So.
Oh, okay. Well, as far as the gaming segment goes, I'd say for the Guardians of the Galaxy game, it's really worth a playthrough. And I was a little bit skeptical about it at first because I didn't know how I felt about the player being entirely locked into playing as Quill. But I think they did it in a beautiful way, all in all. I actually really enjoyed the seamless combat where you can interact with the other Guardians in a way that I didn't expect. You can kind of use them each as they each have abilities that you can focus and trigger on certain things. And in combat, there's even interactables that you can have them use. So you could have Drax throw a boulder. If you look at it and it'll say oh, press triangle for Drax, and you could tell him to throw that. Or
Did you talk to Groot?
Yeah, you can talk to Groot just regularly around the Milano, and sorry, I had to get Luca. But around the Milano, you can talk to everybody, and there are limited dialogue options for each section that you're in the ship between missions. But I mean, they really grow as characters, and your decisions through the game actually really impact it all. To a degree that, there's one portion in the game where we had to get across a ravine, and we didn't really have a way across, and the console to extend the bridge was on the other side. So Drax was like, oh, I could just throw Rocket. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I let him do it. And so he chucks Rocket across the ravine, and he makes it. And there's this funny little sequence where Rocket's, screaming across the ravine where we could barely hear him, and he's cursing and everything. And they actually censor out all the cursing, so it's family friendly. They kind of replaced the F-bomb with the word flark.
Oh, nice.
Everything like that. So like they came up with kind of like a different words for swear words. So it's a PG-13 type game. So it the consequence of throwing Rocket, he actually starts like shooting at you all from the other side of the ravine because while he's like screaming at you, he misses every bullet, but it's really funny. And then he finally retires and then goes over and extends the bridge after complaining enough. And Quill's like, all right, you can have like an extra 5% cut from what we're doing. And he takes it, and then he's like, oh, we'll just take it out of Groot's cut because I don't know what he needs money for. And
And
of
what's the
course,
tree need money for?
yeah, Groot responds, but of course we don't know what he says. Um,
Yeah.
but you can like walk up to him in the ship, and he will like talk to you, but Quill just kind of guesses is what he's saying and just carries the conversation along. But your decisions really matter, and because I let Rocket be thrown across the ravine, it's actually mentioned a bunch of times throughout the game. Like there's a point where you again come across a bridge, and Rocket's like, "All right, you can throw me," and at that point, like a lot happens before then throughout the game, and they're like, "No, you're a respected member of the team. We're not going to throw you again." And it's like that's not your job to be thrown. And even in like the end credits of the game, there's like this little journal throughout the time that you're playing that you can check on. It's like Quill's notes about their adventure, mission by mission. And
Oh dear.
Before you get to that part, it shows like a Polaroid picture of each character, like main character in the story, and it's like this person's doing this now and everything, like those old Lifetime movies, you know what I mean, where it's like, oh, Carlton moved on to start a career in this after everything.
Yeah,
But
or like a movie based on a true story, and it has to
exactly,
show you where everybody ended up at the end.
yeah, that's exactly it. And for Rocket, it was like Rocket has a better understanding of like the way things work as a team and everything, and he now has more authority in the ship, as well as he renewed his team contract under the guise that he is never to be thrown again.
Of course, he sounds like Gimli.
Yeah, so
Never
like,
throw a dwarf.
yeah, so it's funny because that one little decision in the middle of a mission that seemed like it meant nothing at the time echoed throughout the whole game afterward.
Became a part of his life.
It became a part of the whole story. I mean, they mentioned it so much, and that's what I mean. Like, your choices, no matter how little they seem, have such an effect. Like, there are even collectibles that you can find throughout every mission. They're kind of hidden sometimes, but if you find them, then on the ship after that mission, you can go and like inspect the item again on the ship, and it'll trigger a personal dialogue with the character that has a tie to.
Oh, cool.
And that could actually like bring your relationship better with them. And they even made it so that the level up system for each character has its own narrative element. So
like little side relationships that could turn out differently based on how you went about the story.
sort of like that, but also more like what I meant was as the story progresses and the more you go through things, the Guardians will overcome and conquer their own personal like obstacles and grow as people. And as they do that, they'll actually unlock their like fourth special ability that's locked behind that wall.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like Rocket has like a petrifying fear of water, but after he gets over that, his fourth ability unlocks. He has character growth. So I really like that, and there's a narrative element to all of it, and I think it's just gorgeous. I think the storytelling was awesome. You
Did you like
actually,
the final boss battle? Was it satisfying?
I think so. I mean, I had a good time. I think that the final boss battle was tough to a certain degree. The game is a little bit buggy sometimes, just here and there. Um, it never impeded on my ability to have fun in the game, so that's definitely a really good thing. But I've had a few bugs in the last fight, but it never made it hard. It was more like, imagine the fight just kind of like stopped for a few seconds.
Okay, so it's not the kind of thing where, the bug happens and then you get your ass completely kicked and then you have to restart the whole thing or choose a save because it just screwed you over.
No, it's more like,
Everybody stops for a second.
yeah, it's more like the main bad guy just kind of like does the equivalent of a stop and T pose for a little while, and he's impervious to damage until like he catches up, and then it goes back to normal. But other than that, I thought it was really good. There's actually like the final battle, quote unquote, is really interesting because there are like 4 final battles. And fun fact, you could actually beat the game and end the game halfway through it. Because in the game there's this thing going on, and it's kind of like taking over everybody's minds, and eventually like you might fall under its influence, and if you give in to it, the game just ends there. It rolls credits.
Oh yeah, they could beat you early.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then what did you think of the gameplay? Scale of 1 to 10.
I thought at first it was kind of hard to get used to, but as time went on, I actually really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a good time. I'm gonna rate it I'm gonna give it an 8. I'm gonna give it an 8 only because sometimes there's just a lot happening. There's a lot to keep up with, and constantly giving commands to the other Guardians to do their things. If you can't smoothly do that while accomplishing your own personal objective, it gets really hectic.
That sounds a little annoying to me because I've played lots of games where my companion or companions plural knew what to do and would just do it. Even if they weren't great at it, they would just, snap into action.
Well, they do. The Guardians do fight without you even having to tell them, but they won't use like their special abilities that you can trigger by commanding them to do them. So like, Drax is really specialized in like stunning the enemy or like breaking like their stance so that they stagger and you can do more damage to them. Gamora is really like focused on high damage on one target or like decent damage on a lot of targets. Groot is more focused on like using roots to wrap enemies up that are in his like all the enemies in front of him at a certain distance get grappled up and they're held in place. And Rocket is really good at like, he has a grenade he'll shoot that like gravity bubbles out and then pulls all the enemies together in one place.
Yeah, I would wish that they could do that, with a cooldown, obviously. But I wish they would kind of do that by themselves because I played games where the other characters, the NPCs, even if they were my companions, they knew how to do that, and they would just go ahead and take the initiative and do it.
It is actually really satisfying, though. Like, when you... Because then it kind of feels like, wow, I did that, you know? When it works, it really works. And personally, I mean, it is a pain sometimes whenever it's like a really like high intensity battle where you have to like reach point A and interact with B while all of this is happening around you. But that situation only really arrives maybe once or twice in the whole game.
Okay, makes sense then.
But I would definitely rate it an 8 for gameplay wise. Plus, there are quick time events, and I'm somebody that really likes quick time events. Even in combat, like if you're like using melee to fight an enemy, it's random. They can possibly counter you. And there's a quick time event that happens if they do that. And if you miss it, then they'll knock you on your ass. But if you succeed, then you knock them down. And it does a pretty good amount of damage.
And then what would you rate it overall? Obviously, everybody knows our system by now.
Our scaling system.
We got the thumbs up, the thumbs down, the 2 thumbs up, the 2 thumbs down, and then we have the old Roman side thumb. So if you don't know, you just hold the sideways thumb up for, just kind of mid, or I have no idea what to rate it, so I'll do this.
I would definitely give it, at the very least, 1 thumb up. But in my heart of hearts, I really want to give it 2 thumbs up. I had a fantastic time playing it. It's a gripping story. It leaves you wondering. There's one point for those that get emotionally invested. You might even cry. It's honestly really, really good. You'll laugh. It's a very good game to invest yourself in, and it gives you a lot to do. There's just so much that goes into that game that I wish I had more time to talk about it. But my final verdict is most definitely 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds like the minimum that people will probably enjoy this is the basic thumb up, but then if they spend the extra time with it, and if they are able to get invested into it, they'll probably end up with a double thumbs up, super great experience. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Exactly what they were going for after the complete failure that was their Avengers game. They needed a hit, and this was it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're going to have an ad break real quick, and then we're going to get the news for you guys. There is a lot of exciting things coming out of the D23, so stay tuned for that. And crashing back down to Earth. The first thing I want to go over is the fact that we didn't get to see the Indiana Jones 5 trailer. It was behind closed doors, shut away from the public. People were allowed to film Harrison Ford's emotional greeting, though. He went on stage and he described the movie as a kick in the ass and really fun and something that he's super proud of, so it already sounds better than the 4th one. So good. I'm looking forward to it a lot, and from what I hear, I'm hearing rumors that people saw Sala in the trailer, and if anybody remembers, Sala was probably the greatest funny man with a big, big heart from Raiders of the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade, who was a huge help to Indy and Marion and Indy's dad and Marcus and everyone, and he's just like super funny and sweet, and everybody loves Sala. So if he's returning, it's on the right track.
Well, we always love returning characters for sure.
Yeah, this is a big throwback. I'm so excited. I've always been a sucker for Indiana Jones, and this is no different. This is a really big one for me. So that's coming out June 30th, 2023, a couple months after the D&D movie next year. So I'm gonna have a pretty fun run of things next year. There's gonna be a lot of exciting things coming one by one at the end of this year and through next year. So
Well, it's
speaking of
definitely.
that, Amsterdam is coming up October 7th.
Oh yeah.
That looks amazing. You have Christian Bale, Margot Robbie, Robert De Niro, and John David Washington, among many others. It's just a stacked cast. It looks like a lot of fun. And I'm going to be watching and reviewing that one here in a couple weeks as well. It looks so great. And the other D23 news, I mean, I don't really, watch much Marvel. I don't follow it much at all. So most of the things that came out of there, they didn't even seem to excite the Marvel fans. It seems like they're running out of actors and characters to use. So they're just sort of scraping the barrel to see what they can come up with. But something else that came out of that exposition, I can't remember if it was. Oh, it was an animated show. There's going to be a Tales of the Jedi show coming to Disney Plus, and it's kind of like a Clone Wars prequel. So it'll focus on, Count Dooku when he was a Jedi, and it'll focus on Ahsoka's young life and several other characters. So that one is on my radar. But most of the other, D23 this year wasn't that big or thrilling, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean,
although the Little Mermaid trailer looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this year and the next 2 years are going to be really big for cinema. I really believe that.
It is a big return, especially with Avatar this December. That'll be a huge test to find out just how many people want to see technologically revolutionary 3-hour-long movies in theaters, or if they're going to stick to streaming. So it'll be a huge test.
I personally, I definitely prefer to see things on the big screen.
There's nothing like it, especially with the invention of Dolby Cinema and IMAX. It's just, there are ways to see things that'll just blow your mind. It's amazing, especially Dune last year.
Dune was really good.
Yeah, and it was incredible on the big screen. Oh, Lord.
I mean, I had to see Dune 3 times because I took my girlfriend to see it because she loves Timothée Chalamet. So I took her to go see it, and she actually fell asleep 2 of the 3 times. So I had to keep going back to see it with her.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, it grew on me all the while because you watch a movie 3 times, you might as well find something to like about it. And I actually really like Dune. I think that the second one is going to be really good now that the prologue is out of the way.
Yeah, and I think that one's slated for 2024 or 23. I can't remember if it got delayed or not, but I'm definitely looking forward to the sequel to Dune. I love the first one as well. It was good.
No, I definitely agree.
And then for the Lord of the Rings show, I think based on the first 3 episodes, I think this is easily going towards a double thumbs up season, but it might be too early to tell. But the first 3 episodes, easily 2 thumbs up for me.
I think
they've
the build up
mashed everything that you want together.
Yeah, the build up so far is definitely 2 thumbs up worthy. I'm just waiting to see the resolution of it all and how they leave off season 1, and in that will be how I will solidify that judgment.
Absolutely, man. Once again, though, this was Gonzo Film Reviews. We pretty much don't have anything else for you tonight. We covered efficiently, as always, everything that we wanted to talk about. And we did it best around that you'll hear. of all the things that we put in this episode, I think we put them in the best way. I can't
I
think
would
of any other podcast that covered Lord of the Rings, 2000 D&D, Guardians of the Galaxy game, the D23 news, and just random thoughts quite as well as we did. So, whether that's good or bad, who knows or who cares?
Well, that's for them to decide.
So I hope you guys are informed, and I hope you all check out Guardians of the Galaxy and Lord of the Rings on Prime, The Rings of Power. It's an excellent show, and don't listen to the naysayers because they're dumb. And as always, keep it real and have fun.